You're listening to Protecting What Matters, a podcast by the Ohio Department of Commerce. Commerce is Ohio's chief regulator, and we play a vital role in keeping you safe by protecting your property, your money, and some of the products you use every day. This podcast is designed to bring awareness to important issues and help educate consumers and businesses. Join us as we chat with trusted industry experts focused on providing you with the tools you need to help you protect what matters most in your life.
Sending money through your phone is one of the most convenient things that technology has to offer, whether you're sending money to a coworker or friend to split a lunch bill, or collecting a payment for a porch pickup or gently used items. You're more than likely using a peer-to-peer payment app. But how much do you know about taxes and the money you're receiving through those apps? If this sounds like you or you're clueless about what's happening behind the scenes with these apps, this episode is for you. I'm Michaela Hunt with the Ohio Department of Commerce, and we're sitting down with Victoria Yurkovic today, Consumer Affairs Manager for our Division of Financial Institutions, to talk about the best way to use peer-to-peer payment apps and what exactly you need to know before you press send. We have a lot of questions because a lot of us use these apps every day.
Yes. So essentially, and people don't think about it this way, but the apps that you use on your phone have to be licensed and regulated through a type of agency. So peer-to-peer payment apps, or what we like to shorten it out to be P2P apps or money transfer apps, is essentially sending money from one individual or entity to another. And it's quick and easy. It's usually through your phone. And a lot of times people immediately think, oh, it's when I send money to my friend or family member through my phone and then they receive it from their phone. So that's really essentially where a lot of the known and information comes from with P2P apps. But there's also a different side of P2P apps that a lot of people have been exploring over the last few years, where it's, I have something that I like to sell, or maybe I started having a hobby of creating cookies or baking, and now I kind of want to sell it to folks. Can I use these apps? They're super convenient. And then starts the questioning, and then there starts this enticement from the IRS where it's like,
what are you doing?
What are we doing with our money, and how are we tracking this? And then it just unfolds into, okay, how do we use these apps? What's the best way to use them? And et cetera.
Let's talk a little bit more about that business purposes versus friends and family. Give me some pros and cons in both scenarios, because we have people listening who are in both scenarios.
Right. So if you're somebody that just leisurely wants to use an app to send it to your sister or brother for, a split gift with your parents, or if you're somebody that regularly dines with your friends and someone always wants to pull out that Amex card, but you don't want them to fit your bill for you, so you're like, you know what, I'll just get you later. A lot of folks will use easy apps like Venmo, Cash App, those quick interactions, and you definitely know the person that you're sending money to. Like, you are for sure, I know this person. You have maybe the last 4 digits of their phone number to confirm that this is the accurate profile to send money to, or maybe they have a QR code that they have you scan from your phone to the other. It's a definite, I know this person. That's the friends and family transaction. Then you have those folks that want to explore peer-to-peer payment apps for business purposes or gigs or, walking dog side business of some sort. And they know that someone will use a peer-to-peer app, and it's convenient and it's better than writing a check, and you don't want to give cash. So they start to explore other apps like PayPal that maybe has 2 options with using their apps. I can use it to send it to friends and family, but I can also use it for goods and services. So there's pros and cons to both usages for those apps. But the thing is that you have to keep in mind, the IRS will never expect you to tax money that you're giving as a gift to somebody or paying somebody something that you normally may pay cash, like a bill for something at a restaurant. But when it comes to paying for services, there comes taxes that come into play. So
the tax man cometh. Yes.
Right. So a lot of them will recommend researching the apps that allow you to have more of a business account. And there are a number of them that do. And as a regulatory agency, we're never going to say what's the best option. That's up to you as an individual to do your solid research. But we want to give you like the meat of the subject. So Why would I want to use a business account versus just, the personal side of P2P? You want to be able to maybe send large amounts of money and it not be flagged from a peer-to-peer app. Or you're thinking, you want to make it easier for your customers. So I'm going to utilize this platform. So there's a lot of pros, but there's also a lot of cons. And one of them is P2P apps are not as um, they're not as fluid as your banking accounts when it comes to point of sale systems. So a lot of people that are small business owners or have these side gigs have a way to track when they sell items and when they receive funds. And the tax is kind of involved in it and pulled out for them. So it makes filing their taxes every year easier. But with P2P, there's just a simple funds out, funds in. So it makes it a little bit harder to track. Also, not everybody might be using the P2P app that you want to use. So I want to use PayPal, but somebody doesn't want PayPal and it's not an option for them. Or I want to try utilizing Google Pay or something else, and vice versa. It's not something that's familiar with your customers. And then the other thing is that it can be a challenge for refunds.
If you're in business.
Yes, if you're in business and you use an app, it's not like banking refunds are a lot easier in terms of I'm returning the item. With a P2P, there is no refund ability. So you're really at the mercy of the person saying, I don't like what you sold me. And then you got to be like, okay, let me go ahead and actually send you payment instead of issuing a refund per se. So it could be a little bit tricky, but those are some pros and cons with the business aspect of using P2P apps.
How many P2P users utilize the app for business purposes?
I want to say it's a small percentage. I mean, compared to, I want to say about 30%. It's not very large, but it's growing. And we've seen a trend in the last year or two where a lot of people have been using P2P apps for online selling, and that's where has really drawn an increase in the IRS wanting to be involved. Let's say sporting cards is a good example. Sporting cards,
like baseball cards?
Yes, baseball, football. It's been becoming a thriving market right now.
Really?
In a lot of the ways that they use P2P apps is to sell those cards through those apps. And a lot of times they would do those transactions through, let's say, like eBay, or I believe eBay uses PayPal, but a lot of them wanted to get around the fees. So they started saying, hey, how about we get off eBay and utilize a different peer-to-peer app to send funds, and we'll just do friends and family. But here's your risk. One, it's not good to lie to the IRS. But two, you are putting yourself in a very bad potential fraud situation. And the reason why a lot of these folks want to use these apps is because you can be selling a card from Ohio to somebody out on the West Coast. So you want what's convenient, what's fast, peer-to-peer payment apps.
You kind of alluded to this earlier on taxation, and I think this is such an important bit to talk about. So those tax laws don't affect me if I'm sending to friends and family for that dinner bill, right, or for porch pickup if someone's buying my baby carrier.
Well, see, that's where it gets a little tricky. Okay. So you're technically not a business. You're not using it as like business purposes, but you are selling goods.
Yes.
And so that is where people have to understand, I'm not a business owner, but like I just wanted to sell things out of my garage. And that's great. And you have every right to do that. But if it's over a certain amount of money, you got to pay taxes on it. So that's where I think people miss the ball a little bit. They think, oh, well, I'll just sell like the crib or stroller from, my first daughter or son, and then I have this sitting in the garage, and by the way, like we want to have like a garage sale next week or do something like that, or and then before you know it, there's that jewelry sitting in the box, and before you know it, it's starting to all add up.
So what's my limit as just a personal use case where I should be concerned?
So as of January of this year, if you sell over $600 in terms of sales and goods, and it could be any number of transactions. It could be one transaction. It could be multiple transactions. As long as it's over 600, then you are required to fill out a 1099-K form.
So I need to really be looking at my transactions inside whatever P2P app I choose to use.
Most of the P2P apps, especially if you're utilizing the services and good option of the app, not all of them have it, but those that do distinguish between friends and family and the sales and goods sale transactions, they will immediately send out the 1099 if you go over that number.
Oh, okay.
But there is a warning that not all may do that. So it's up to you as the individual to make sure that you have that form filled out by the time you file your taxes.
Does this impact international transactions?
No, per se, because international is a little bit different. Not most of the P2P apps in our states do not allow international transaction. Usually, you're going to go with like your Western Union, and they also have different requirements. So you can essentially send over like about $15,000 overseas before it's considered taxable because that's a gift, an international gift amount. So it's much higher. Also not readily available through P2P. Think of your more of your international based money transmitters, specifically one as an example would be Western Union.
Okay. I want to go back to something you said about using for business purposes. What if someone does use multiple P2Ps? That seems like a lot to keep track of, considering you're saying to us, these things don't plug into your point of sale system, right? So what if somebody uses multiple ones? What do they really probably need to do and think about?
So when you're utilizing multiple P2P systems, you're going to want to be keeping track all across the board, because even if you're using multiple, it's the collective amount that you're sending. So if you're sending 300 from one app and then all of a sudden you see that there's 1,000 being sent from that, they're looking at the total amount in terms of what they consider that requirement. So multiple platforms across the board, the number is still the same. It's 600 across the board if you're using one app or if you're using multiple.
We've learned a lot. Is there anything else you want to add that we need to know walking away from this conversation?
I would say the biggest thing is we're not tax experts at our division. We obviously are the P2P experts. So you're always wanting to discuss the intricacies of P2P and taxes with a licensed tax professional. But when it comes to utilizing these apps, we just want to make sure that you know, as an individual who's using them as just a friends and family sale, or if you're utilizing them for business purposes or sales and goods, that you're receiving the best information, and we're making sure you're staying on top of it, because the tax requirements did change. Last year they were much higher, more transactions needed to happen. This year they really tightened down. $600 is your magic number, and it can be any amount of transactions. So we just want to make sure that you're aware of that. And we also just want to give you this advice in terms of utilizing P2P apps. One of the biggest complaints that I see come over my desk is somebody using an app through the friends and family option, but they're purchasing something through, like, let's say Craigslist, and it doesn't come through because it's a scam. Let's say it's like a purchase of unfortunately, like an animal of some sort, like a puppy. And then the puppy never comes to the front door and they're out of that money. And then they send us a complaint and say, oh, well, I try to contact, let's say PayPal, and they won't give me my money back. So will you help me? I can tell you, you can file a complaint with us and I'm going to go ahead and send it to PayPal. But you know what PayPal's going to say? Because of our friends and family sale and what is written on our user agreement, it specifically states, make sure that when you're using this option, you are sending it to someone that you know, because we will not refund money in that situation. And so they will say, how do you prove to us you knew this person? And a lot of people can't prove it.
Right.
Because they don't know it. It's a stranger selling, potentially selling something on the internet. So my advice is always, and it will look very enticing to use the friends and family option versus the sales and good option, because you might get out of paying a fee, or you don't want to worry about the IRS requirements, but you could probably be out of more money being scammed than if you would just follow the way that they want you to and potentially have to pay a little bit of taxes on the amount.
We have these conversations because we do believe in protecting what matters, so we hope you enjoyed it. If you have any other questions or information, visit com.ohio.gov. Look on our homepage under Consumer Resources. We put some additional information there. Victoria has it under the Understanding Finances section. And we'll catch you next time on Protecting What Matters.